Storylines start where the protagonist, filled with tears in her eyes and in disbelief, said, "Father, it really wasn't mean." She was drastically dragged by her father. In back, she was desperately trying to explain something to her father. He didn't even flinch to see her face. How does it all happen? Let's see. Everyone whispering, "The princess has fainted." The practitioner examined the drink the princess has had. He reported that the drink was poisoned. With raging anger, he said, "You?" The half-awakened princess, with blood pouring out of her mouth, said, "No, Jubellian." He shouted, "In the end, you are trying to kill the princess too." The protagonist pleaded, "No, it wasn't me. Please believe me, Mikhail. The princess said she was thirsty, so—" Suddenly the boy raised, carrying the princess in his arms, and said, "Enough of that. Is it because I love the princess and threw you away?" She was stunted in disbelief. Everyone around the hall whispered, as I thought, it was envy. It was very likely that the lady would do that. After breaking up with the Marquise Hessen, she bullied all the women who approached him, but even the princess. She was stunned to hear all this conversation, and in fear she squeezed her gown. She thought, "It's true that I hated the princess for taking my Mikhail, but I swear I have never wanted her to die." Behind her, her father walks in the first floor, the emperor shouting, "What are you all doing? Throw that wicked brat into prison immediately." She begs her father, "Father, will you believe me right?" He shuts her down by knocking her hand and moved forward, said, "Your Majesty, I will take her there." The emperor in anger shouted, "And why should I trust you? Are you not going to mess things up in prison?" He replies, "You would trust me if I took her to the shadow." She was already half dead there, thinking, "The shadow room?" The shadow room. A place where magic and weapons cannot enter, somewhere that you can never exit once you entered, and where only those accused of high treason are sent. She thinks, to say he will lock me up in the shadow room means he is giving up on me. How could you do this to me? Finally, they have arrived in front of the shadow room. He says, "Go in." With tears, she added, "I really got thrown away," even though she was used to it. When she was little, she went to her father's study. He questioned her, "Why have you come here?" She replied, "Because I want to see you." But with hatred, he added, "Don't find me for this kind of reasons." With tears in her eyes, she runs away. He was always been that way, ignoring her no matter what age she was in. In disbelief, she squeezed her gown and thought, "That's right, father, you don't love me." Suddenly, he turned towards her and gave her a thing and said, "Endured it." She unwrapped it and saw a sword. She thought, "What am I supposed to do with this sword? Is he telling me to commit suicide?" Without turning back, he went away. Back there, she was shouting, "Father, please, father! Father, don't throw me away like this!" She was scared and crying non-stop in that dark room. Suddenly, she heard some noise outside, the guard trying to stop the crown prince entering. In fear, she thought, "That's right, only the imperial family members can enter the shadow room and leave." The crown prince returning the guard, "Get out of my way! I have come to interrogate the sinner who dared to poison my sister." The guard replies, "His Majesty have not approved your interrogation." The crown prince added, "The way to have someone speak the truth is to have them suffer before they die." He enters into the room where she was. She picked up the sword before he interrogates her. The life of that woman ends there. The story stopped updating there. The reincarnated female lead thought, "It would have been nice if I knew the ending." A voice behind, "What did you call on me to say?" She turned and said, "You are 3 hours late to our schedule meeting." He added, "You called me over to criticize me?" he puffed out, thinking, as a reader of the story, the villainess who dies after being abandoned by the male lead, I have became the villainous Jubellian. She replied to him, I am going to cut to the chase here. I want to break up with you. He was stunned for a moment, but not surprised. He said, How absurd. Do you think that I would believe those words? Marquis Michael Albert Hessen, the man she loved and the male lead of this novel. Before transmigration to this world, she was an ordinarily normal person looking for work. On way back to her part-time job, she was hit by a car and met an accident where she died. When she opened her eyes, she was reincarnated into the juvenile body, the villainess, and she remembered her relationship with Mikhail for past 2 years. She bullied each and every one who approached Mikhail. He was the only person who offered his hand when she was lonely and unloved by her father. She liked the little attention he gave her. Even more, she was obsessed with him. To fulfill her lack of attention. This time she confirms him that she truly wants to let him go. She thought, to avoid the dead flag, I need to save myself starting now. By his expression, it shows that he didn't believe her. She added, If you don't want to believe me, that's okay. I have clearly told you that I want to break up things between us. With doubtful and unbothered look, he replied, Fine, I believe you this once. Don't ever appear in front of my face ever. She succeeded in deleting the death flag and apologized for what she did to him and walked away happily. But he misunderstood that she was trying to get his attention back. Even though he wanted this, but still he is annoyed by her action. She returned home happily that she succeeded in her plan, and she was exhausted and thought of resting. She didn't notice that her father stood in front of her. She froze and stunned. Duke Regis Adri Polin, the only swordmaster in the nation and my only family, my father, and she added information that he doesn't age because he transcends existence. He walked past her. She asked him whether he returned safely with a warm smile. She added with smile, he must be tired from all the training he have been watching. She asked him to go upstairs and rest, and as she is going to do the same, and climbed the stairs. She thought in this life she would do this to him, not for affection, but for his money and wealth. He replied, I didn't go to the training. Did she heard wrong? No, actually, he was speaking to her. He asked her, You have returned earlier today. Usually in her past, she returns home late because she used to stalk Mikhail. She is thinking whether to tell the truth to him or not. She answers him that they broke up. By grabbing her arm, he asked, Why? She replies that he doesn't love her anymore. Added, I don't want to live with someone who doesn't love me. His face turned horrifically bad. By his looks, she assumes that was he thinking of Mikhail as son-in-law. But with confidence, she speaks up to her father that she want to marry a person who loves her and she want to live a happy life. Without any word, he left. She assumes that her father doesn't want to talk to his pathetic daughter anymore. She added, Father, I will live quietly and not stand out, so please leave me alone just like before, so I can love a long life. The maid walking towards Jubellian room thinking, the lady has bad temper, so she used to be difficult at times. Trembling, she thought, what she is doing in her room? She knocked the door and said, Bath is ready, my lady. There is a weird habit of her. Whenever she yawn, her eyes tears up. When the maid entered, she misunderstood that the miss was crying, but in real she just yawned. But the lady was embarrassed and turned away. She says, Sorry, actually I am very tired, so I will take bath tomorrow morning. She was so concerned about her, so she apologized and ran away. but Jubellian thought she shouldn't be rude now onwards towards the maid. The maid was sad that she murmured the way back as, "It seems she is too shocked to the point she is crying, due to being heard broken, our pitiful lady." The Duke appeared in front of her, and with pure concern he demanded, "She need to report everything that she saw in?" The next day. She woke up. "It seems it's a good day today." Maid enters her room, greeted her, and reported that the Duke have requested to have breakfast with her. With a grumpy face, she sat in the dining room with her father and thought, "He usually never eats with me." He was concerned about her when the maid reported him all about the last night. He offers food to her and asks her to eat. But she never seen this side of her father and assumed it in wrong way, and thought, "Father, why are you doing this to me?" She was counseling in mind that he probably thinks I am pathetic, but I can understand why. After becoming the Duke, he became the leader of the Central Army and a royal guard, the nation's hero who brought in a great victory in the war 20 years ago. Compared to him, me, horrible rating in society, 0 social skills, always running behind Mikhail. How embarrassing. I can't even compare him for a slightest. He called his daughter name, Jubellian. She replied, "Yes, father." "What is your ideal type?" In shock, she dropped the knife. "Why would you ask such a thing suddenly?" He replied, "Because I am curious." She assumes that, curious, you haven't ever had any interest in me in my past. Why now? Maybe he is planning on having me date another man? Having son-in-law that he will use as an heir. She replied, "Ha ha ha, ideal type? A man who is stronger than you, father?" With cold eyes, he asks, "Are you being honest?" As she had in mind, "I will never have to marry because no such man exists." She freaked out and replied, "Yes." She thought whether he noticed what she is thinking. Father, money, honor, handsome, skill, wealth. I will not marry a man if he doesn't have all of these. He thought and said, "Who I see? Jubellian, let's go outside together." She trembled in shock and asked, "Why, father?" They have never went outside together in these 18 years. They went into street vendors' shops. He bought everything she saw and touched. A man covered in black clothes passed by her. He misunderstood him as a girl and thought, even though she is a girl, she has a sword. Her father asked her to stay for a bit, as he had a conversation with some guards. She heard all the whisperings from the crowd about them, so she thought of going into a quiet place. In rush, she quickly went into some random shop, but she went into a wrong place. Embarrassed, but still she want to explore. Shopkeeper said, "I love your style. What do you want to purchase?" Suddenly behind her a black figure appeared. "Here is the payment," he said. He turned behind and looked at his face. Red eyes. They made eye contact, she thought. Did I openly stared too much? He said, "What are you looking at? Beat it." What happens next? So finally they two met. Let's see how their relationship starts. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for next video. Please do like and subscribe.